Have you ever been asked a question that didn't feel right? It sounded polite, maybe even caring, but something in your gut twisted. You froze, you questioned yourself, and suddenly you weren't sure what was real anymore. That's not conversation, that's control. Some people don't lie with statements, they lie with questions, crafted to make you doubt your judgment and surrender your truth without even realizing it. But here's what changes everything. Once you recognize the pattern, you stop being the target. You stop reacting and start responding. The Stoics knew that clarity is the ultimate defense. In this video, we'll break down 5 manipulative questions liars use to weaken you, and how Stoic wisdom turns those traps into powerless noise. If you've ever left a conversation feeling smaller, confused, or guilty for trusting your instincts, this message is for you. You're not too sensitive. You're seeing clearly, and today you'll learn how to hold your ground. If that resonates, like this video and subscribe. Let's build the Stoic shield together. Number 1, why are you so sensitive? This question might sound innocent, but it's one of the most subtle psychological traps a manipulator can set. It doesn't come at you with direct confrontation. It cuts deeper than that. It turns your clarity into a character flaw, your perception into a problem, and your awareness into weakness. All in just 5 words. Picture this. You notice something strange, a detail that doesn't line up, a tone of voice that feels off, a shift in someone's behavior that doesn't match their words. So you bring it up. Not aggressively, just honestly. You ask for clarity, you question the inconsistency, and then, out of nowhere, it hits you. Why are you so sensitive? Now something strange happens. Your attention, which was focused outward on the behavior you questioned, turns inward. You start asking yourself, am I overreacting? Am I reading too much into this? Should I have just stayed quiet? This is not a coincidence. It's the whole point. This question is designed to make you doubt your own perception. Seneca, one of the most grounded Stoic thinkers, once wrote, "We suffer more often in imagination than in reality." A manipulator uses that truth against you. They want you to imagine that your boundaries are flaws, that your intuition is paranoia, that your healthy skepticism is emotional instability. But the Stoics never saw sensitivity as weakness. In fact, they trained themselves to observe closely, to notice the hidden truths beneath the surface, to pay attention without being consumed. Sensitivity to them was not fragility, it was heightened awareness, an advanced form of perception. So let's break this down clearly. When someone asks you that question, they're not really looking for a conversation. They're shifting the blame. They're dodging accountability. Instead of addressing the behavior you noticed, they put you on trial. Suddenly, you're not discussing what happened. You're defending your right to feel anything about it. And here's the danger. If you fall for it even once, it creates a pattern. You begin to internalize the idea that your awareness is a burden, that your need for truth is a sign of emotional instability, that asking questions makes you the problem. But that's not awareness. That's gaslighting. Carl Jung, the father of analytical psychology, once said, "Everything that irritates us about others can lead us to an understanding of ourselves." But manipulators twist this wisdom into a weapon. They want you to believe that your discomfort is always your fault, that if something feels wrong, it's because you're flawed, not because something is actually wrong. Jung warned about this kind of spiritual bypassing. When people use philosophy or psychology not to grow, but to escape accountability, all of a sudden your ability to notice patterns becomes a liability. Your clarity becomes something you're asked to apologize for. But ask yourself this: who benefits when you stop trusting your own perception? It's never you. Now think about what the Stoics would do. Marcus Aurelius journaled his thoughts daily not to suppress his feelings, but to understand them. He wrote, "If someone can show me that what I think or do is not right, I will gladly change. But that process begins with truth, not deflection, not blame, not shame." A Stoic doesn't silence a concern by making the other person feel small. They meet it with reason, with dignity, and with clarity. So when someone drops that question into the conversation like a grenade, don't defend yourself. Don't rush to explain or justify. Instead, stay still, stay grounded, let the silence stretch. Then with calm precision, say, "I'm not sensitive, I'm observant. Are you uncomfortable with that?" That response does something powerful. It puts the spotlight back where it belongs. It reveals the manipulation. It forces the other person to confront the real issue they were trying to hide behind your self-doubt. Some will stumble, some will escalate, some might even walk away. But what matters is this: you didn't collapse, you didn't apologize for seeing clearly. There's a quiet power in not flinching, in not getting pulled into someone else's emotional trap, in standing firm in your awareness, without anger, without fear. The Stoics called this inner fortress, a place where your clarity remains untouched, no matter what storms rage around you. In a world that constantly tells you to lighten up, stop overthinking, just let it go, choosing to feel deeply, to notice inconsistencies, to hold people accountable, is radical. It's not dramatic. It's not negative. It's what keeps your inner world aligned with the truth. And without truth, there is no real peace. Only performance, only pressure, only the slow erosion of self-respect. So the next time someone asks why you're so sensitive, hear what they're really saying. Why won't you stop seeing clearly? Why won't you ignore the discomfort? Why won't you let them off the hook? And your answer? I see clearly because I've trained myself to. I feel deeply because I care. I don't ignore what doesn't add up. I don't pretend things are fine when they're not. And if that makes someone uncomfortable, that's their discomfort to carry, not mine. This is what the Stoic shield looks like in action. Not a fight, not an argument, just clarity, just stillness, just truth, spoken without apology. You don't need to get loud to be right. You don't need to explain your perception to earn its validity. You just need to see clearly and stand in that truth without fear. Number 2, you trust me, right? At first glance, it sounds like a question rooted in closeness and care, but behind its soft delivery often hides something sharper. Not a request for understanding, but a demand for silence. You trust me, right? It rarely seeks connection, it seeks control. It's not about building a bridge, it's about blocking a question. Manipulators understand something about emotionally intelligent people. They know you want to be fair, kind, and respectful. They know how much you value relationships, and they know how uncomfortable it is for you to appear suspicious or paranoid. So they use your strengths against you. This question isn't a check-in, it's a trap, a way of guilting you into submission, a way of making your doubt the problem. Here's what makes it so effective. It sounds reasonable. It doesn't accuse. It doesn't raise its voice. It simply places a burden in your hands, the burden to prove your loyalty, to suppress your intuition, to keep the peace by abandoning your perception. And if you're not prepared, you'll fall right into it. Epictetus said, "It is impossible for a man to learn what he thinks he already knows." That line cuts through the heart of this tactic, because when someone says you trust me, right, they're not opening a discussion, they're assuming an answer. They're declaring that you owe them belief, even if their actions don't line up with it. And that's not how real trust works. Let's look closer. This question rarely appears out of nowhere. It arrives at a precise moment, right when something starts to feel off. Maybe their story changed slightly. Maybe the timing doesn't match what they said last week. Maybe your gut just knows something isn't right, and just as you start to question, they lean in. You trust me, right? It's designed to disarm your clarity, to stop the question before it's even asked. And because you care, because you want harmony, it works. You pause, you smile, you nod, you silence yourself, not because you're convinced, but because you don't want to make waves. But here's the Stoic shift. Real trust isn't about blind faith. It's about consistent proof. Marcus Aurelius didn't hand out trust freely. He observed, he waited, he let people's patterns speak louder than their words. He didn't take charm at face value. He let time reveal the truth. So when someone hits you with this question, don't panic, don't over-explain, don't start listing all the reasons you've been loyal. Instead, respond with clarity, with calm, with this question. Are you asking me to ignore my judgment? This one sentence changes the dynamic. It flips the pressure. It forces them to clarify. Do they want trust or do they want compliance? Because those are two very different things. One is earned, the other is demanded. One builds connection, the other erodes it. Consider the wisdom of Viktor Frankl, the renowned psychiatrist who endured the horrors of a concentration camp. He taught that between the stimulus and response there is a space, and in that space lies our power to choose. This moment, the moment when someone demands your trust, is your space, your chance to pause, to think, to choose a response that aligns with your clarity, not your guilt. So don't rush to protect their comfort. Don't abandon your perception just because you're afraid of appearing difficult. Ask yourself, has this person shown up consistently? Do their actions match their words? Have they earned the space they're asking to occupy in your trust? If the answer is yes, they'll understand. They'll respect your honesty. They might even appreciate your integrity. But if the answer is no, they'll react. They'll deflect. They'll call you cold, distant, or suspicious. That reaction will tell you everything you need to know. The Stoics always return us to action, not appearance. What matters is not what someone says to earn your trust. What matters is how they behave when they think you won't question them. Trust in Stoic thought should be given slowly and taken back quickly when broken. So the next time someone asks, you trust me, right? And your gut twists, that tiny internal alarm, don't ignore it. That is wisdom speaking. That is experience whispering that something's not adding up. You don't need to accuse. You don't need to start a fight. You only need to pause, breathe, and say what needs to be said. Are you asking me to ignore my judgment? That question doesn't end the conversation. It begins the real one. The one built not on pressure, but on clarity. The one that manipulative people desperately hope you'll never have the courage to start. This is how you break the pattern, not by becoming cold, not by shutting everyone out, but by requiring that trust be earned, by respecting yourself enough to slow down and observe. This is what it means to carry the Stoic shield. Not as armor to push others away, but as protection for the truth you've worked hard to see. You don't need to harden. You just need to be honest. You don't need to withdraw. You just need to stand still in what you know. Because real trust doesn't demand silence. It welcomes questions. And if someone's afraid of your questions, they were never building trust. They were building a cage. Number 3, are you accusing me of something? This one hits different. It doesn't always sound aggressive. It sounds puzzled, even hurt. Like someone's just trying to understand. But don't be fooled. This is one of the most advanced redirection tactics in the manipulator's arsenal. It flips the script instantly. In one short sentence, you go from being the person asking a reasonable question to the person under suspicion. Suddenly, you're not curious. You're confrontational. You're not noticing. You're attacking. Or at least that's the illusion they want you to believe. Let's break it down. You notice something doesn't sit right, a small inconsistency, a vague timeline, a contradiction between their words and their actions. You ask about it, not to accuse, but to understand. And all of a sudden, instead of answering, they tilt their head and say, "Are you accusing me of something?" Now your mind starts spinning. You wonder, did I sound harsh? Was I too direct? Did I just turn a calm conversation into a confrontation? But that's exactly what this tactic is designed to do. It redirects your attention from their behavior to your delivery. It makes you second-guess your tone instead of standing by your observation. The Stoics had a name for this dynamic. Marcus Aurelius called it the confusion of roles. It happens when we let someone else redefine what's happening in the moment, not based on facts but on feelings. He warned us, don't be pulled into someone else's storm, stay centered in your own clarity. When you let your response get hijacked by emotional redirection, you've already lost the real conversation. And this is the real danger of this question. It doesn't answer, it distracts, it doesn't clarify, it destabilizes. Because now instead of discussing the real issue, you're defending your character. You're trying to prove you weren't being accusatory. You're caught in a spiral of self-explanation, and they haven't had to explain anything. But here's the Stoic insight. Asking a question isn't the same as making an accusation. Clarity isn't cruelty, and doubt isn't disrespect. You're allowed to ask for the truth. You're allowed to notice when something doesn't add up, and you're allowed to expect consistency. Let's take a real-world example. Eleanor Roosevelt, known for her strength under pressure, once said, "No one can make you feel inferior without your consent." That principle applies here. When someone tries to make you feel guilty for asking a question, they're hoping you'll internalize their discomfort as your failure. But emotional discomfort is not evidence of wrongdoing, especially not yours. So what do you do when this question lands in the room? First, don't flinch, don't panic, don't rush to explain. Instead, let the silence settle. Use the very thing they fear, your stillness, as your response. And when you do speak, say this: should I be? 3 simple words. But they are sharp, surgical, and powerful. That question doesn't escalate, it doesn't accuse. It simply flips the reflection back to them. If they've done nothing wrong, your question won't threaten them. But if they have, it will force them to confront what they were hoping to hide behind deflection. And here's where your observation skills matter most. Watch their body language. Listen to what happens next. A person with nothing to hide will likely clarify. They'll invite the conversation. They'll welcome your need to understand. But someone who was hoping to avoid accountability will often deflect again. They'll change the topic, or worse, they'll double down on guilt tactics. This is how you see behind the mask, through presence, not pressure. The Stoics remind us again and again. Stay with what is. Don't get caught in speculation. Don't lose your footing in someone else's emotional fog. Marcus Aurelius trained himself to journal each morning to prepare for emotional manipulation. He wrote, "Today I will meet people who are deceitful, manipulative, arrogant, but none of it can harm me unless I let it inside my mind." This is exactly what you're doing when you stay calm in the face of that question. You're protecting your mental space. You're choosing not to absorb the blame. And you're standing in your right to see clearly, to ask questions, and to expect truth. Remember, the person who asks, "Are you accusing me of something?" is often saying something much deeper. Stop observing. Stop asking. Stop making me uncomfortable. They're trying to change the topic from their actions to your tone. But tone is not the truth. Delivery is not the issue. The real question remains unanswered, and they want to keep it that way. So hold your ground, Let your stillness speak. Let the silence stretch if it needs to. And then calmly ask, should I be? That moment tells you everything. Not through the words, but through the reaction. Some people will crack under the pressure of your clarity. Others will get louder, more dramatic. But your job isn't to manage their emotions. Your job is to manage your own state. This is how you use the Stoic shield. Not to shut down others, but to keep your own clarity intact. Not to silence confrontation, but to stay open only to truth. Because truth doesn't fear questions. Truth doesn't require silence. And truth never needs manipulation to stand tall. When you stop reacting, you stop being predictable. When you stop justifying, you stop being controllable. And when you stop apologizing for your clarity, you become untouchable to those who depend on confusion to maintain control. So the next time someone throws this question at you, don't answer it, redirect it, let it hang, then calmly respond. Should I be? And just like that, you've taken back the frame, you've stepped out of the emotional fog and into full awareness. That's not just emotional intelligence. That's Stoic power in action. Number 4, would I ever lie to you? This question doesn't sound like a weapon. It sounds like vulnerability, like someone opening their heart, like someone hurt that you could even doubt them. But look closer. Underneath the soft voice and the wounded expression is something calculated. It's not a question, it's a performance. And it's not there to invite honesty, it's there to shut it down. Would I ever lie to you? It's not about truth, it's about guilt. It's meant to make you feel bad for even noticing something is off. It takes the spotlight off their actions and places it squarely on your doubt. Suddenly, you're the one under examination, not them, not what happened, not what was said or done. Just you, your trust, your loyalty, your willingness to overlook. And here's why it works so well. Because you're a good person, because you care, because you don't want to hurt someone you love. You feel the weight of the question, and it stings. You don't want to be the person who accuses. You don't want to seem suspicious or paranoid. So you hesitate, you soften, you let it go. Not because the truth changed, but because you felt pressure to look away. But here's what the Stoics knew. The moment you abandon clarity to maintain comfort, you start lying to yourself. And that is far more dangerous than being lied to by someone else. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "If someone can prove me wrong, I will gladly change." But what he really meant is this: truth must be stronger than pride, stronger than fear, stronger than the need to be right or liked or safe. Because when truth is sacrificed, everything else slowly begins to crumble. Now think about how this tactic shows up in real life. A partner who deflects a tough question with a wounded, "Would I ever lie to you?" A friend who makes you feel like your concerns are betrayals. A boss who expects you to trust them while hiding facts. The words are soft, but the intention is hard. To make you retreat, to keep you quiet, to turn your honesty into the problem. Let's take a real example. Steve Jobs, though famous for his visionary mind, was also relentless when it came to truth. He asked hard questions, he welcomed feedback, even when it was painful. He didn't allow emotional discomfort to block clarity. He understood that progress, whether personal or professional, demands truth over performance. So how do you respond to this kind of emotional sleight of hand? You don't argue, you don't over-explain, you don't fall into the trap of reassurance. You meet the performance with presence. You say, "That's not the question. The question is, would I know if you did?" That response is devastating in its simplicity. It doesn't accuse, it doesn't dramatize, it just cuts through the noise. Because here's the truth. Whether someone is capable of lying is not the point. Everyone is. The real issue is whether you can recognize it when it happens, whether you are tuned in enough to yourself, grounded enough in observation, and brave enough to trust your gut. And this is where Stoicism becomes a shield. Epictetus taught that we must train our perceptions, not to live in suspicion, but to live awake. The Stoic doesn't assume everyone is lying, but they don't hand over their judgment just because someone looks sincere. They observe, they reflect, they trust, but they verify. Here's what happens next. If the person is honest, your response won't threaten them. They'll pause, they'll clarify, they'll appreciate that you care enough to ask for truth. But if they're dishonest, they'll twist, they'll take offense, they'll turn it back on you. And that reaction alone reveals everything you need to know. The person who asks, "Would I ever lie to you?" is usually hoping that you won't dig deeper, that you'll back off, that you'll feel ashamed for wanting clarity. But shame is not a substitute for trust, and emotional pressure is not evidence of truth. You're allowed to ask, you're allowed to see, you're allowed to want to know. So next time this question is dropped into the conversation like a velvet glove over a clenched fist, pause, let the silence expand. Let it do what it does best. Reveal then, without hesitation. Say that's not the question. The question is, would I know if you did? That moment will tell you more than any speech ever could, because people who live in truth don't fear your questions. They welcome them. They want you to see everything because they're not hiding anything. But those who manipulate, those who twist emotions to dodge accountability, they'll try to flip the script. They'll try to make you the villain for simply seeing clearly. In Stoicism, clarity is your power, not aggression, not argument. Just the quiet strength to stand in what you observe. The courage to trust your own eyes, your own gut, your own mind. Because in the end, the question isn't, would they lie to you? It's whether you're willing to see through the performance, whether you're strong enough to let go of needing to be liked in order to be honest, whether you can love someone without lying to yourself about who they really are. So if the answer is no, if you wouldn't know, then that's the problem. Not your suspicion, not your question, but the fact that you had to ask it in the first place. That's what the Stoics understood. That inner peace doesn't come from trusting everyone. It comes from trusting yourself. Number 5, can't we just move on? At first, this question sounds healthy, peaceful, even mature. It gives the impression that the person is ready to let go and grow beyond the tension. But under the surface, it can be something else entirely. Not a gesture of peace, but a strategy to avoid accountability. Can't we just move on? It often comes after you've asked for clarity, after you've questioned a pattern, after you've tried, maybe more than once, to address a contradiction between words and actions. And when you don't get a clear answer, when you hold your ground, that's when this question shows up. It sounds like resolution, but it's really resistance. This question works because it flips the roles. Now, instead of the other person needing to answer, it's you who appears difficult. You become the one holding on to the past, the one making things harder. It's a brilliant move if their goal is to avoid the discomfort of truth. But Stoicism teaches something different. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "If it is not right, do not do it. If it is not true, do not say it." That line reveals everything. We don't move forward by ignoring the truth. We move forward by facing it. Accountability isn't the enemy of peace, it's the foundation of it. Let's pause for a second and look at how this tactic plays out in real life. Maybe someone you care about did something that hurt you. You bring it up, not to attack, but to understand. You speak gently, you ask directly, but instead of leaning into the conversation, they deflect. They say, why are we still talking about this? Can't we just move on? And in that moment, the air changes. You feel like the difficult one. You feel like maybe you're stuck in the past. Like maybe your desire for clarity is actually a lack of maturity. But it's not. Wanting to understand isn't weakness, it's strength. It means you're brave enough to stay in the conversation when it gets uncomfortable. The Stoics understood that running from truth only delays the pain. Seneca said, "A guilty person sometimes has the luck of escaping punishment, but never the torment of their own conscience." Avoidance is never peace. It's just a slow, silent erosion of trust. Now, some people genuinely want peace, but they don't know how to get there. They think moving on means pretending nothing happened, that time alone can heal what honesty avoids. But true healing doesn't come from avoidance. It comes from understanding. So when someone asks, "Can't we just move on?" your response isn't defensive. It isn't emotional. It's grounded, calm, clear. You say, "I'll move on when I understand what happened, not before." That statement isn't stubbornness. It's integrity. It sets a boundary without aggression. It communicates a simple truth. I'm not here to punish you. I'm here to understand you. And until we reach that understanding, peace will just be a performance. Let's look at a real-life example. Oprah Winfrey, known for her emotional intelligence and clarity, often speaks about how unspoken pain becomes a silent barrier in relationships. She says that until you speak the truth, healing doesn't begin. She's lived this. In her interviews and in her personal life, she's asked hard questions not to create drama, but to create space for real connection. So when someone tells you to just move on, hear what they might really be saying. They might be saying, "I don't want to be uncomfortable. I don't want to be responsible. I don't want to revisit what I'd rather forget." But your role is not to carry their avoidance for them. Your role is to honor the truth, to stay in the light, to ask for what you need to truly move forward. Because the goal isn't just resolution, it's honest resolution, one built on clarity, not confusion. The Stoics weren't afraid of difficult conversations. They trained for them. They saw them as opportunities to practice virtue, patience, courage, compassion, truth, and so can you. When someone wants to move forward without looking back, that's not strength. That's fear in disguise. So the next time someone asks, "Can't we just move on?" and your gut tells you that the real issue is still unresolved, listen to that. Trust that instinct. Pause, breathe, and say, "I'm willing to move forward, but I'm not willing to pretend I understand when I don't." That single line holds power. It opens the door to a deeper conversation. It filters out those who want comfort more than connection, and it shows you who's willing to walk the path of truth alongside you. Because anyone can move on, but not everyone can move forward, and that's the difference. Stoicism doesn't demand that you hold on to pain. It invites you to process it, to learn from it, and then to release it, but without skipping steps, without faking peace, without pretending to heal in the dark. The real question isn't, "Can't we just move on?" It's, "Can we move forward with truth between us?" And if the answer is yes, then peace will follow. Naturally, quietly, stronger than ever before. But if the answer is no, then walking away with your clarity intact is still a victory, because you chose truth, and that above all is the path to real peace. When you recognize these questions for what they are, tools of deflection, not discovery, you stop playing the game. You stop explaining what needs no apology. You stop softening what was already spoken with honesty. And in that moment, you reclaim something powerful, your clarity. This isn't about fighting. It's about staying grounded when others try to shake you. The Stoics didn't chase control. They cultivated awareness. And that's your path too. To see clearly, to speak calmly, to act with strength even in the face of manipulation. If any part of this resonated with you, don't keep it to yourself. Share it. Comment below. I choose clarity because every time you stand firm in your perception, you not only protect your peace, you model strength for others. And if you're ready to build a life that can't be shaken, subscribe. This is just the beginning.